Hello everyone, it's Jaron Bracken with NCSI. I'm back today to walk through Service Update 2 for Endpoint Manager 2022. This was more of an evolutionary update. Added some features, a lot of bug fixes though. So we're just going to hit the highlights here real quick. First thing, like I was saying, EPM 2022. We're working off of the README revision 2 here. And we're going to talk about the agent. So they did add a variable for the SDM cache. You'll notice if you're using the engine-based agent, it is program data Ivanti EPM agent SDM cache. You'll notice we have an EPM agent installer has a command line to accept config name, much like WSCFG32 can. And it's just EPM agent installer.exe space /config, and then the name of the configuration. So kind of handy. You can install whichever particular agent type you would like. It also supports the embedded OS push installs. So if you had any of the Windows embedded machines that had the right filters, they have learned how to deal with it. Also new in this is added engines. So they are getting it closer and closer to the standard agent with custom data forms, power management, alerting, and real-time monitoring, which I know at least this one and maybe this one are big for some people, and that one might be for others, but that's a little bit more rare. So really good news there for the engine-based agent. Also, Autopilot now allows the installing of Office 365 apps, which is a big thing for a lot of customers. A lot of productivity occurs through the Office 365 apps, so having this ability is big news if you're utilizing Autopilot at this point. There's some information here about core sync, essentially being able to synchronize cores across domains that don't have any trust. So we can do it now with saved credentials and an API key so that you can have core sync across maybe larger environments that have different domains that don't have a trust. All right, moving down to data analytics. They have here hard-coded DTS rules to prevent all of them from being made active. So there are certain rules that one wouldn't benefit from being made active or having being included in real-time processing, aka having that rule processed when an agent when that agent submits its inventory scan. And then more importantly, there are some rules that would actually cause significant performance impact to the server if you did enable those. So they've now prevented that, which is great. You can't accidentally bring the core server to its knees by enabling a rule that you weren't supposed to. They've also moved the Data Analytics Discovery Service credentials into the Credential Manager, which is great. I know one of the complaints that I've had, and I've seen other customers that I've worked with have, is the number of places that you can store usernames and passwords. So they just cut that one down. If you're not familiar, this is how you can do scans for like SNMP devices. You can store those SNMP credentials now in the Credential Manager, or WMI credentials as well. So pretty nice. There are a number of Mac improvements here. Improvement with the policy sync date, supporting for new Mac Bootstrap token calls. This is particularly for the MDM piece. 0-day support for Mac OS 13, and add support for login items added by apps. So pretty big news there if you're an early adopter or a moderate adopter of the new versions of Mac OS. This is also big. We do have Apple content caching with the self-electing subnet services. So that's a pretty big deal. It used to be that was a Windows-only thing, so that's nice. And then this is service management, manage logged in items, payload. So if you're using the service management piece, add some extra features there for you. Okay, Patch Manager, a couple of big ones here. Patch Definition Filter Update. If you've ever used the Patch Definition Filter, it's very handy, very granular. You can go in and select patches based off of the OS, but also the product and then, the vendor and then the product, and including even down into versions of the product that you can want to have things done, like automatically adding it to a rollout project or automatically adding it to a patch group. So what they've done here is they have made it so if you select a full product, it will automatically include new versions, which is big for things like Chrome and Firefox, where they have new major versions once a month, once every other month. So you don't have to go in there and reselect those new versions every time one comes out. So they're just making it a little bit easier for this to be a set and forget kind of rule. They've also removed the Linux OS support options from the patch campaign because those Linux OSs are no longer supported for patch campaigns. Also of note, I found this out recently, there is also no Linux support for rollout projects. So it's purely Windows and Mac OS inside of those rollout projects. Remote control, they made it so you can add a custom message. So this is bringing back a setting that we used to have in the old or the legacy remote control. Now we have the ability to do display a custom message again. Also, this was a big one. There used to not be an option to collapse the remote control dialog. So if somebody's remote controlling, it would say your computer was under remote control, and it would say who was remote controlling and from where. This was not collapsible. You couldn't get rid of it. You just had to move it around the screen. They've added that feature now. Also IPv6 support for remote control. Another big one here, web console. I've demonstrated the web console in prior videos, but we've added more features here. Again, inching closer and closer to being a replacement for that old remote console that has a rather dated look to it and function. So this is really good. We can now reboot devices. We can search results guidelines. So if there are no search results, they'll offer suggestions where to look. We now have a people list view, not just devices. There's our device list view. Task history tab, which is handy for troubleshooting or just knowing if a task has been run on a machine recently. There are some new dashboards as well. So days since last hardware scan, software scan, etc. And we'll demonstrate all of this in the console. Then view and select queries created in EPM console. So this was nothing. There was nothing to do with queries before. So big news here in the web console. And then there was some fixes as usual. I'm not really going to cover any of these. I don't think there was anything that really stuck out to me as far as stuff that was impacting a lot of people. But you're welcome to look through this. We'll make sure and put the link in the video description so you can come and look at these release notes. All right, let's move on to the server. All right, here we are back in the console on the server. There's not really a way for me to show you the new engine-based agent features, so we're going to skip that. The next thing was autopilot. So if I come up to Tools, Provisioning, and Windows Autopilot, and you'll notice it's not configured on my core here, and this is a lab. But if I come down to Applications, there's a new button here to create a Microsoft 365 app. So pretty neat there. The next thing we talked about was the data analytics in the data translation services, and not being able to set certain types to active. And let's see if I can demonstrate that. Throw in some junk there. I just needed to create the rule. So here's a good example. This is an Adobe software import. This has nothing to do with agent inventories, and you'll notice there is no make active option. So that was one of the big problems. Another one, here's another one that was a big problem, and that was these Dell warranty imports. This would blacklist you pretty quickly with Dell if you ran this on a daily schedule, or if you did it every time a computer sent an inventory scan. This data is, of course, pretty static. It doesn't really change very much, so we set this up on a schedule to run like monthly or something like that. So not a big deal. The other thing we were looking at is discovery services and moving the logins. So you can see here, this is where we used to store them in the discovery services tool. Now it's letting us know, hey, we've moved those to the credential manager, and here they are. So here's the WMI credentials I was talking about and the SNMP, and there's the one that was included by default, our public community for version 1 SNMP. Not really a way for me to show you the Mac information as well, but I can show you the patch definition filters. So I was saying earlier, if you have not played with definition filters, they are quite handy and nice. They get to be quite granular, and you can choose what to filter. So, you know, I can drill down here and say Windows 10, 64, or Windows 11. So that's the first thing it matches when it's looking at a definition. Next is the products, and if I expand this out, Windows, 7-zip, that's a good one. If I expand out 7-zip, you can see all the various versions of 7-zip. In the past, if I had checked this box when version 23 came out, it would show up in this list without a check mark. And this check mark here would turn into the little square there indicating a partial selection. Going forward though, you select the box here, and this plus all of the other new versions will get added automatically. What was the other one? I said Google Chrome. Yes, Chrome. One or two versions of Chrome here, so this becomes a lot more important for things like Chrome because, as you can see, it's extensive. Same thing with Firefox, and there's a couple other rapid release cycle things out there that having this feature is going to be, you know, a really big boon to system admins. All right. Next, the release notes talked about removing Linux OS options from Patch Campaign. That's a lack of feature, so I'm not necessarily going to show you that. Okay, next, let's look at the custom message and remote control. So I'm going to go to my agent settings, find my remote control, and this is the only one I have in my environment, so I'm going to open that. And if you go down to permission settings, you can see if I require permission, I have the ability to display a custom message and can do all permissions at once and type it in. This feature is not new, but the ability to do this with the Windows notifier or toast notification is. So there you go. There is my gibberish that I added earlier. That was not possible before SU2, and I'm just going to deny that. All right, next let's look at the remote control status window that you can collapse now. Remote control one of my clients here, and there it is. You can see there's an extra button down here that collapses it to this kind of floating bar in the middle of the screen here, but this can also be moved around and jockeyed into position as needed. I don't have IPv6, and I'm not going to worry about demonstrating that. That was another feature that was added as part of SU2. All right, next, let's look at the Web Console 2.0 and the added features there. The first thing I want to show you, this should look familiar. You were able to, you know, type something in here and have results show up. Here is the search results guidelines. So, kind of neat. But on the left, we have a list, and from this list, we don't need to use the search to go anywhere before. That was kind of the thing before. You had to use the search bar. Now you can simply click on users to look at our users, get information about this user, and oh boy, is this user busy. I'm the primary owner of all of these machines because it's the only user environment. And from here, we can do remote control. So, kind of neat. A couple buttons here, refresh, and column chooser, and export data. All right, this is the device list, and if I were to click on my lab client here, I would be brought to this page. So we've got a very small amount of information here. I am, of course, able to look at a larger inventory for this computer if I wanted to. But the new features here are under available actions. We have remote control, install software, and reboot device. And I believe install software and remote control we covered already. But yeah, this reboot device is now now available. We also have our task history here, which is new. On the left, we can actually just go from a task history point of view and see the task name along with the lab client or the agent that it ran on. Next, we have queries. So here are the queries, and this looks just like it does in the console. Here's Windows 11 compatible machines, and which I don't have any. Well, I do. One of them is Windows 11. And then this is just a query I made about local administrators. So you'll notice even the columns. So this is a column I added as part of that query, and it shows up in here. And then in reporting, we've got like a memory distribution, and this is so much nicer looking than the built-in reports. Processor distribution. Everything's running as a VM on my machine here, so obviously it's going to be kind of boring there. Device vulnerabilities for... Let's just select all of these. So just some nice added benefits or added reports here so that somebody who doesn't necessarily need access to the console can still get some information. And then these are just the reports list. And we'll do all Windows machines. So there we go. I am really a big fan of this Web Console 2.0. I hope they continue to add things to it and bring this modern interface and clientless console to the forefront. Let's maybe ditch doing remote consoles in lieu of this. So really cool. Highly recommend you check it out. Remember, you do have to type in the fully qualified name of your core server and then web console at the end of it. All right, and that is the end of my overview of the features of EPM 2022 Service Update 2. If you do install this, please remember to follow all guidelines and installation guides. Reboot your core server, use DISM to check for mounted WIM files, snapshot the server and also back up the database before you do anything else. Disabling AV is also a good idea. So there's documentation on the community that walks you through all of that, and I'll see you on the next one.